morning, everybody, and welcome to the Proud Skill Worker. Today we have Justin Stewart, an industrial maintenance technician who's currently working out of Texas. We're going to jump right in and we're going to get to know Justin. We're going to learn about his story, how he got into the skilled trades, the greatest challenges in his career, and then we're going to jump into some questions from the viewers. Justin, let's take this thing away, man. Tell us your story. How'd you get into trades?
Actually, I'm from South Carolina, and they don't really require a boiler license for boiler operators. It's actually the bottom of the maintenance department there. So I kind of got in the door that way, and then they were like, oh, you could be doing a lot more than just sitting back here watching a boiler all night. So they started having me do mechanical stuff and then slowly work my way to electrical and through the whole plant.
So transitioning out of the boiler and into the industrial maintenance, like mechanical and actual electrical, what was the biggest challenge that you had getting into moving into those roles as you moved up?
The mechanical one wasn't really that bad because I'd been working in the boiler room, so it's kind of like the same stuff, similar stuff, pumps and different things that would be out on the production floor. So, but electrical was a little bit time consuming, I guess. It would be. I didn't really know anything about electrical, honestly. I lucked out, and the guys who taught me were extremely capable and extremely good teachers. So I was able to learn a lot in a little amount of time.
Right. So as you transitioned into that and started to kind of move up and progress your career forward, what was the biggest challenge you faced? I mean, what did you see as the biggest barrier in Justin's growth?
Um, the plant that I was in was not the best, and
Okay.
the biggest barrier was getting my first 5 years in. Because most places were like, we want you to have at least 5 years experience. So it's kind of like stuck right where I was for the first 5 years just to get that experience in.
Okay. When you say stuck, I mean, I'm just curious. Talk to me a little bit more. Do you feel like you had all the knowledge you needed after 3 and 5 years is just what people put on
Yeah,
paper, or do you feel like
yeah.
in those last two you started to learn a lot of little nuancy things that maybe were you didn't know or understand fully?
I'd say the majority of the learning happened the first three.
Okay.
Like, my first year in the boiler room, my first year in mechanical, and my first year in electrical. But without having formal education, I guess you'd say, in the field, it was most jobs wanted you to have 5 years experience in order to get comparable pay to what I was making
Mhm.
without having any kind of schooling.
Okay, great. So great story, kind of coming out of South Carolina. Where all have you been? I mean, states-wise, where have you all worked out of, been located in, industries? I mean, what kind of have you touched as you've grown your career?
Honestly, I think Texas is the third place that I've been. Um, I worked a couple of plants while I was in South Carolina, uh, and then one in Tennessee, and then now one here in Texas. Um, Honestly, they were all different. One was a textile plant, one was a chicken processing plant,
Okay.
one was a corrugate paper plant, and now I'm at a taco and soup plant. So they're all different, but um, I found a lot of the equipment's similar. Like all machines are made up of the same parts. So once you kind of figure out how the parts work and what they're supposed to be doing, then it's not that hard to transition from plant to plant.
As if my next question is, do you think it's easier or harder to transition industry to industry? Because it sounds like, I mean, you've been across four with textile and corrugated box and paper and food. I mean, pretty easy once you know it, wherever you're going.
For the most, there'll be small differences, but um, the hardest part really is learning your way around a new facility because you're like, do I go that way, or is it all the way in the back, or you know what I mean? That's really the time consuming. I guess it takes a couple of weeks to like get familiar, especially if it's a bigger place.
Yeah, some of those places are built like mazes. So,
Yeah.
all right. So next, we're going to jump into three questions that we got from our actual tool bag giveaway, which we just announced the winner for. So congratulations again, Jason Durr, for winning that. Um, kind of first thing we're jumping into here is what is better, to be a jack of all trades or a master of none? And that question comes from Mike M.
I mean, that could be looked at from two sides. I mean, I've done a little bit of everything at this point, and it's kind of aggravating, I guess, because jobs expect you to do 5 jobs instead of just. Whereas if I specialized in one thing, then it would be kind of like I would have this one job, like if I specialized in just electrical, then anything mechanical, I'd be like, I don't know anything about that. So it's kind of, I don't know, whenever you do a little bit of everything, then they expect you to go here and here and here, or they'll be like, oh, this guy can take care of this. I need you to go look at this instead. You know what I mean? So, like, you'll get halfway done with a project, and then they won't let you finish it. They're like, oh, anybody can do that. We need you to go over here. So it's kind of aggravating in some sense, but at the same time, if you have your hands on a little bit of everything, it makes it easier to find a job.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that part of being a jack of all trades is it's easier for you to land somewhere, but being a master of one almost seems like it's a little easier to climb that ladder. So a little bit of give and take on what it is you're looking for. Are you looking for long-term success in a position, or are you looking to be successful wherever you go? I mean, is that fair, or is that kind of a fair
Yeah,
assessment of that?
that seems like a pretty good assessment.
Okay. What about for you? I mean, you had said you touch a little bit of everything. If you right now could hit the refresh button, start all over, and just pick one thing to jump into, what would you master?
I think I probably would have stayed in the boiler room.
Okay.
Honestly, that's been my favorite job, and you kind of stick by yourself. 95% of the time, it's not a bad job, and then the other 5% something with the boilers messed up, so it's like the whole plant's down. Like, oh, you gotta hurry up. But that's been my favorite, honestly, out of all the positions.
Okay. I think that as a somebody who would specialize in jack of all trades like yourself, is it is there any intrinsic reward or any real value in kind of being the guy? Like, hey, you're the guy, or do you don't feel
No, honestly, like I said, it ends up being a headache. Like, if I
okay.
could go back, I definitely would have just stuck with one thing.
Okay, great. So next thing, and this is going to tie right into that kind of boiler question that you just answered for us. So we got a question here from Josh V. How do I advance my education without sacrificing my paycheck?
I don't know. That is honestly a tough question. Um, I haven't really found a lot of jobs that offer a lot of. I mean, Skillwork offers a couple of things, but I haven't really found a lot of jobs that offer you a lot of training. Just like basic, whatever's required of the position, but they won't go above and beyond. Um, a bunch of the people that I've worked with recently have been looking online, finding different, like online certificates, or because they were like it would be better than nothing,
Hmm.
like online PLC courses or different things.
Do you think it's hard for companies to invest in education and those types of things uh, because a lot of people want to be jack of all trades and not masters of one, or do you think it's because there's a different dynamic going on the plant floor?
I feel like managers and supervisors would rather have somebody working under them who knows a little bit about everything.
Hmm.
That way, like I said, they can send them here, 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 here. I think they would rather have everybody well rounded to an
Okay.
extent because it makes their job easier if they have guys who know the entire plant instead of guys who just specialize in certain areas. Because um, what if the guy who specializes in electrical calls out today and he's the only one on shift that knows electrical?
Mm. I think that you hit on it a little bit. There's a lot of resources out there now with online classes. I know that Click Safety, and we have some certification courses even through the Garden City Ammonia program that Skillwork we actually work with closely. You can get certified in 4 or 5 days to be an ammonia operator, which is a skill set that's needed. Click Safety has courses available online. Are those things that technicians are looking at, or are they really wanting to go? Hey, I want to go to an electrical training school because I want to be an electrician or I want to be an electrical maintenance here at this plant. I mean, is the online option something that technicians want to pursue?
I mean, I feel like it is because if it's online, then I can do it at my pace and it doesn't
Right.
interfere with my job and home life and whatever else I have going on. I have an hour free today, so I do a little bit of it. Tomorrow I might only have 30 minutes. The next day I might have 2 hours. So I feel like that definitely makes it a lot more convenient. You know, our work. Anybody who works in maintenance at all knows that the schedule is loosely the schedule.
It's more fluid than it is concrete.
Yeah,
Okay. So definitely awesome to like think through like what is actually available for technicians. Not it doesn't have to be through the facility, even on their own. Finding some stuff that really just helps you kind of level up and grow your own career. If especially if you want to be a master instead of that jack of all trades role that you've kind of talked about. So definitely great ideas there. The last question we have here is why is a person with on the job training overlooked for someone who has maybe a degree or education? Do you feel like, and that question comes from one of our viewers, do you feel like people with on the job training are overlooked, or do you think that they're not overlooked? I'm just curious to know your thoughts there.
I feel like the first 5 years they probably are overlooked. Like I said, most places are like, oh, we're like I said, from what I found, the majority of jobs they want you to have 5 years experience as a minimum in order to get like a decent position where you're not like bottom of the pool, you know. But once you get that 5 years, in my opinion, I don't think it really matters whether or not you have a certificate or not. For as long as you can answer whatever questions they give you, like specific, like you interview and they might ask you a couple of mechanical and a couple of electrical and a couple of like, basic questions. For as long as you can answer those questions, then I feel like it doesn't really matter at that point. Or I've seen a lot of jobs who like they want you to have a 2 year mechatronics degree or 2 years of experience now. I guess because everybody's having a hard time finding people, so
Hmm.
they will take experience in lieu of having the actual certificate or a degree.
Are you seeing that more and more on the ground level where companies are starting to kind of compromise on the, well, maybe not 4 years of education. We'll just substitute 2 years of education, 2 years of technician experience. Are you seeing that more and more?
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot more. Are people who have absolutely no experience at all. Or one plant I was in was so desperate for people, they were like, "Oh, this guy's automotive maintenance, so we're gonna bring him in because he already knows how to work on stuff. At least he knows how to use tools and stuff." You know?
Do you think the 5 years of experience line is companies trying to get a return on their investment, or like what is your thought? Why 5 years? I mean, you said you learned most of what you knew in three. You were at a smaller facility with people who were dedicated to kind of growing you and teaching. Do you think 5 years is a closer to the mark in an average facility to learn all that, or do you think like what's your thought there? I'm curious to know why five.
Um, I, I think five is more of like, I guess they feel comfortable in that you know what you're doing and they're willing to give you a decent rate of pay, if that makes sense. Like anything less than that, then they're like, they want to bring you in the door for a lot less pay to see does this guy really know anything or is he just, you know. But I feel like once you get the 5 years, then they're willing to, okay, he must actually in 5 years. I don't know why it's that specific, but just from my experience with job hunting and everything else, it's always been like 5 year minimum. I
Okay.
mean, they would take people occasionally with less, but honestly, I don't even know if that's relevant today because everywhere you go, everyone is so desperate for people today that they'd probably take anyone with a year.
Is that frustrating or encouraging to you, like that the bar has kind of moved given the nature of the industry that you're in? Is that a frustration for you, or do you see that as an advantage of bringing in people, growing them up, and kind of building that workforce? What is that? How does that feel for you?
I mean, I feel like it's an opportunity for a lot of people if they're willing to work and take advantage of it. Um, you could get in the door with a lot less than what was required. Like say 5 years ago, I was having a really hard time trying to find another job. But I mean, today, like anyone can go out and you know, find a better opportunity than what they currently have. But so I feel like it's a good opportunity for somebody who maybe has no experience at all to get into a field where there's a lot more room to grow. than perhaps where they're currently working.
One of the things that I want to ask you, and this isn't from anybody, is you've been to 4 or 5 different facilities across 3 different states. What are three principles or kind of three things that you found that doesn't matter where you go, if you do these 3 things, you'll be just fine in industrial maintenance. I mean, you'll be okay if, and maybe it's not three, maybe it's only two or one, or maybe you can just go, well, here's the kind of the recipe or playbook I have of being successful.
I mean, honestly, it's the same things with any job. You show up every day and you show up on time and you do whatever they ask you to do. And like, I haven't ever had any problems with work or, getting fired or anything else. So if you do little things like, they send you to do this, but you're like, I also found that this and this and this was messed up. And if you go ahead and take care of those things instead of just like, oh, we need to look at all that later too. I find a lot of jobs are like, oh, like they feel like you're going above and beyond, I guess.
No, absolutely. Um, in those moments where you've gone above and beyond, do you feel like it's recognized or do you think it goes unnoticed?
Both. It's hit or miss. I think for me, it's more of it bothers me that it's messed up because I walk over here 10 times a day and have to look at it. So I want to fix it, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it definitely does. Is fix what's broken and then you don't have to do it later. I agree. All right. Justin, anything else that you want to kind of speak into the community of? So the purpose here of the Proud Skill Worker is to really give a voice to technicians in the field, to give a voice to the craftsmen. And if this is an opportunity for you to kind of stand up and say, hey, this is what's wrong. This is what we can fix. This is what I see. And really give skill work and other opportunities and other companies and even skill workers like yourself, skilled workers in the field everywhere, a chance to really go, you know what, that is something we can all fix together. Is what's something for you, Justin, that if you had a soapbox that you could stand on and just yell across the room to everybody, hey, we gotta do this. What's that thing? I mean, everybody's got one, but everyone's got a thing.
Uh, Honestly and truthfully, my biggest thing with right now is every plant that I go in, the overtime, which is nice because none of us are working all that overtime for free. But at the same time, like, I feel like a lot of places should come up with a way for us to at least get like every other weekend off or something. The last facility I was at, I know I worked like 5, 6 months straight before I ended up with a Saturday night off.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, or a Friday night or anything. Actually, I don't know if I ever got a Friday night off while I was there. It's kind of like, you know, some people have families and different. I don't have a family or anything, but still, it would be nice to have like a normal weekend off, like everybody else I know does. But
Right.
especially people who have families and kids and stuff. You know, I feel like uh, maybe the facility should work harder to figure out a way where every other weekend, or you know what I mean, every third weekend, even something. I
Yeah,
feel like
at least a
that
right.
infuriates a lot of people and ends up driving them to be like, Saturday and Sunday, probably with us spending every weekend in there too, I feel like not as much work gets done as what could get done if we were off the previous weekend. Maybe
Mhm.
we'd have a little more energy.
Yeah, I definitely think that there should be a way to accommodate the people who want the time off. But I do know, like you said, there's some people who that overtime is gold to them. So don't have to adjust all of it. But if there is somebody who says, "Hey, what are your thoughts on maybe me taking Friday?" Um, and so in those cases, do you feel like if you're proactive about it and approach your management, have you had positive results, negative results, or kind of just been net neutrals?
Uh, for the most part, it's been fairly. They're like for as long as we have enough coverage, then usually if you go to them ahead of time, like, hey, I really need this Friday off because of this, then they're semi accommodating most of the time. Um,
Okay.
it depends on the facility, honestly. Some places are like a little more strict by the schedule and everything than others, and if nothing else, I found a lot of places like people are willing to swap around schedules with you. So like, if you need Friday off, maybe they have a doctor's appointment Wednesday, so hey, well, I'm off Wednesday, so can we swap? If
Right.
nothing else, your fellow workers will usually look out for you if they can too. So
Cover down inside the brotherhood.
yeah,
Perfect. So that's all we have today. I want to thank Justin so much for being on the podcast with us here. Appreciate you guys taking time to watch. Please do subscribe to the Proud Skilled Worker. We're giving a voice to this community. We're doing our best to highlight problems, concerns, and then going after them to solve those things. So continue to subscribe, continue to reach out, ask questions. We'll do our best to answer them on the podcast. And I want to just thank Justin so much for his time today on his day off. And then everybody who's watching, appreciate you and reach out. Thank you.